All right, what's up, y'all? Let's talk about training intensity. So, I see a lot of people posting about, oh, you don't need to train to failure and yada, yada, yada. Well, the thing is, right, training to failure is almost impossible, right? Because of mental reasons. It's just really, really hard to get ourselves there. So, when we go to the gym and we lift, we want to try and always good at failure, right? Because we'll get as close as we can, and then that way we're really, really pushing overload on our muscles, and we're gonna force them to adapt and grow. So yesterday, what I did is I put 275 on the bar, and I did a set of 10. Then I went to 80% of my max, which is around 315. I did six, or well, I did 10, and then the set that like pretty much gassed me out, right? But to be honest, like I wasn't falling over, so even though it was really hard, right, that probably wasn't failure. So failure was I did a bunch of sets, and I got down to like where I was doing like 275 and I could barely get four, right? So failure was when I hit 275 and I for four, and I pulled off a 25 on each side, and then I did like another 4 or 5 reps with that, and then that's what got me probably as close to failure as I was gonna get. Right, the only real way I would have gotten to failure is if I had a spotter and I physically like fell under the weight and they had to catch me. Right, so that is training to failure. And when you hit that point, right, like for example on bench press, when you just like you get stuck, right, and your spotter makes you hold you, like that's true failure. Okay, that's going to be where some of your best gains are made. However, like a lot of these like influencers are saying, you don't want to do that too much because that will tear your tissue up and make it hard to recover, right? But if you're going in there, right, and you're bench pressing 225 and you can only do 10 reps and you get to 9 and you're just totally dying, right? And you knock that ninth rep out, right? And you can rack it. That's really, really close to failure. And that's really the intensity level that I'm looking for from my clients, right? But that's not to failure. Okay, failure is when you like physically, like, you can't push the weight anymore, even though you're in the middle of a rep, and it kind of starts to fall back on you, right? And most of us are not ever going to get to that point in our regular training session. What's important is that we get as close to that as we can safely training by ourselves, because having a spotter just really, really isn't, it's not a practical thing all the time, right? Especially because a lot of people like to talk, and then that's actually really gonna like take you back from failure, right? So my point here is, keep the intensity level up, right? And then push it as close to failure as you possibly can while training alone, right? So if you're supposed to do 10 reps with an 80% max and you can only do 8, you know, do a drop set, right? And then get the rest of your reps, do like 2 to 4 more reps, right? After you take off like 10 pounds on each side. This is going to get you as close to failure as you possibly can. And the closer you get to failure, the more gains that you're going to make. And the more gains that you make, the more fat you burn, because each pound of muscle you put on is going to burn like an extra 50 calories a day, right? And it's going to make your fat loss journey much more efficient. It's going to make you healthier. It's going to help increase your bone density. All of these good things, right? So when it comes to training, train crazy hard, right? If it doesn't hurt, then it's not going to work, okay? You should really go in there in your lifting sessions and just smash it, okay? You should really, really feel uncomfortable. If you go in there and you're doing a set of 10 and you can knock out 10 and you got 3 more in the tank, then you might as well not even count that set. That set was worthless, right? The only sets that count are the sets where you can do 10, where you're supposed to do 10, but you can only do 7 to 8. And then you have to do it like a drop set or something, right? I would much rather you fail out at 8 than do 10 and have 2 more in the tank, right? That's just not effective, right? If you have gas left in the tank, right? We always We want to try and get as close to failure as we can safely. All right? Thanks, guys.